Documentary Hip Hop Beats and Rhymes premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and broadcast nationally on PBS's Emmy Award-winning series, Independent Lens. Mr. Hurt's more recent film, Soul Food Junkies, won Best Documentary at several film festivals. And he is a member of the Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity Incorporated. Right now, he's in the midst of production for his upcoming film, Hazing. He's been featured in various media publications ranging from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's appeared and been heard on MSNBC, NPR, CNN, Fox, and other networks. Today, he's here with us to do some workshopping on the issues of sex assault and gender violence. Please welcome him warmly, Mr. Byron Hurt.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, let me hear that one more time. Good morning. Good morning. All right, thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here on your esteemed campus. It's a privilege and an honor, and I want to thank Professor Jones for inviting me to be a part of this event. As she mentioned, I was scheduled to come here several months ago, but we had to postpone it. But here I am today, and I'm looking forward to engaging in a conversation with you on an issue that's very important to me. So Adrian mentioned the fact that I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I am. And it's something I'm very passionate about. I love making documentary films. But one thing that has really transformed my life, starting when I was a young adult, was learning about the issues of gender violence and gender violence prevention, which is something that I never really thought that I would get into as a young man. And I have learned a tremendous amount about my own sense of manhood and masculinity by simply engaging in issues around the socialization of boys and men, regardless of race and class, all over the country and in various parts of the world. And so we don't have a whole lot of time here today, and so I'm going to be very quick and right to the point, and engaging you with some exercises that get to the root, the core of how many of us, not all, but many of us are socialized and conditioned to see ourselves as men in American culture. So what I'm going to do is just come down here. Player, be a player. All right, yes. Okay. Material. Oops, material. Okay. Materialistic. Yes, sir. You'll be the last one right now. Huh? Punctuality. Okay. That's interesting. I never heard that one before, but I'll take it. Punctuality. All right, I can tell you all are Morehouse men, right? All right, and that's great. But in analyzing the society that we live in and understanding that Morehouse may be a bubble, for the most part, this is the world and the culture that so many boys and men, especially black men and brown men, grow up in a world where some of these words that are inside this box are highly emphasized and are closely associated with our sense of manhood, our sense of worth, who we are as men, right? To have a lot of girls, right? To be tough, to be strong, to be uber masculine, right? To show no fear, as we mentioned, right? To man up, right? A lot of young boys and men are taught to man up. I remember one time I was playing in a football game. I was playing a college called Holy Cross. And I was in the game, and these dudes on the other team were hitting me like rapid fire. I mean, they were just coming at me hard. I was a freshman quarterback, first time really experiencing playing college football, and I actually broke my ribs. And it got to a point where it was so hard, I couldn't even bend down and take the snap. When I was calling out the signals, my ribs were hurting me that badly. And I remember running over to the sideline and telling my coach, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can get back in. I can't, the pain is too much. What do you think my coach said to me? Told me I needed to suck it up, right? That's another thing that men are taught. We gotta suck it up, right? Then he said something that I fully did not understand. He said to me, I thought you were from New York. Like, what does that have to do with my ribs being broken, right? But he was trying to make an association between my maleness and being from New York, which is considered to be a tough city, right? So he was trying to play on my sense of manhood or my insecurities about my manhood, hoping that that would motivate me and inspire me to go back into the game despite the fact that my ribs were broken, right? So there are so many boys and men who grow up in this world who feel like we have to perform a sense of manhood and masculinity in order to get that respect from other men in our world, right? But the truth of the matter is, we don't all neatly conform inside of this box. Some of us don't really belong inside of this box. For many of us, being inside this box is constricting. It's confining. It limits who we really are as men, to your point, right? And so there are people who actually challenge this box and dare to be outside of it, right? But what happens if you're the kind of brother who, instead of hiding your emotions, is too emotional? Or what happens if you don't have the ability to be violent? What are other dudes going to call you if you don't conform to being inside this box, if you're not a player, if you're not straight, right? If you don't have a lot of women, right? What words are dudes going to call you? Yes. Soft, female, faggot. What else? All right, I can't hear all of y'all at one time now. All right, sissy. All right, yes. Weak, sweet. All right. I heard someone say pussy. All right. Okay. All right. Now, I understand we're in a chapel. All right. I understand that and I recognize that. But this is real talk, and this is how we treat each other. What other words are we commonly referred to if someone wants to kind of put you down based on your manhood or your masculinity? The B word. Okay? In some spaces, it's the B-A word. Right? In some spaces, it's the B-A-N word. Am I right or am I wrong? Talk to me if I'm right. Okay. So, this is the world that so many of us as boys and men grow up in. And let me tell you something. I travel all over the country. I speak at high schools, colleges. I have spoken on military bases. I have spoken on all kinds of athletes at Nebraska and Ohio State University. Next week, I'm going to be speaking at Arizona University about this issue. This is very common, the world that we live in. But let me ask you a question, fellas. These words that are outside of the box, right? I add another one, sensitive. This is a word that I've been called many times by my fraternity brothers, that I'm the sensitive brother, right? These words outside of the box are powerful. They're extremely, extremely powerful. They limit who we can be as men. They restrict us, and they make us conform to a limited and narrow definition of manhood, right? Now, some of these words inside this box are really important for us to have, right? It's important for men to provide. It's important for men to be smart. It's important for men to keep your word. You know, it's important for us to protect your mother, right? To persevere. I mean, none of these words are not all bad. These are not all negative, because sometimes we have to pull on some of these characteristics in order to get through our daily lives. For example, one of the most difficult times in my life came when my father became very ill and subsequently died from pancreatic cancer. And in order for me to get through that time period in my life, I had to persevere. I had to be strong, right? But so did my sister, who was a what? So did my mother, who is a what? Right? So some of these traits or characteristics are not exclusive to us as boys and men, right? Girls and women also have to be strong. Members of the LGBT community have to be strong, have to be tough, have to be able to persevere, right? A lot of times people say, well, men have to be independent, or men have to be responsible. My wife is one of the most responsible human beings on the face of this earth, and she's a woman. So being responsible is not directly associated with being male only, right? There are many people in our world, in our society, who have to be these things. But oftentimes, if we are not some of these things, if we're the kind of person that cries at the drop of a hat, right, because we're emotional, right, then we get labeled sensitive, right, or we get labeled soft, or faggot, or girl, or the P word. And so what these words have the impact of doing is forcing us to portray a limited notion of manhood that may not be who you really are. You understand what I'm saying? How many of you all know a dude that acts 10 times harder than he really is? Raise your hand. All right? 10 times harder. All right? They come from places that aren't very hard at all, right? But they get on campus, and then all of a sudden, they're like the Morehouse star. I don't know if that's the appropriate thing to say, but there's a certain amount of performing that we do as men. Now let me get to the real deep part right here, because we're running out of time. These words, sissy, female, faggot, girl, who are they in reference to? Women, right? So basically, we're saying that women are what? Less than men? That women are somehow inferior to men? Who else are we talking about here? Who else are we talking about? Gay men, trans men, okay? People who don't identify in that binary world that you're talking about, male or female, they may be completely way out the box and be comfortable being who they are because that's who they are, right? But a lot of times they become ridiculed because of their sexual identity, however they may identify, or they may even be targets of violence, which happens far too often, right? And a lot of times it happens because somebody may be confronted with something that makes them feel insecure about what they've been taught about being male in America. And so we project that insecurity and we do things or we say things that are harmful, not just to the members of the LGBT community, but also to girls and women. Okay? So we have to think about the power of our words, what they mean, who we're talking about, who we're referring to, right? So when we call somebody the P word here, right, we're referring essentially, and I'm not saying that everybody always makes this connection, but we're essentially referring to a woman's genitalia, right? As a sign of weakness, okay? When we talk about being strong, we say you need to grow a pair, right? Which is inherently masculine. Again, we make these connections between strength and weakness and normal and abnormal, right? Based on genitalia and other things that are deeply problematic in my opinion. So if you can look at girls or members of the LGBT community and you can see them as less than men, then what happens? What can happen? How can you treat them? The brother said, in the Kaepernick shirt, the brother said, you have every means to dehumanize that person, right? So this is very destructive because we are dehumanizing people who are fully human. So again, what I'm asking you to do is to really challenge yourself to think very critically about how you speak to other men, how you refer to girls and women, how you think about the LGBT community. These words are extremely powerful. I'm telling you, these are controlling words. They control our behavior. And in many cases, they may dictate our behavior. So really quickly, so if we want to talk about what's inside that box there, what can be some of the negative consequences of being trapped inside of that box? For men, specifically. Multiple personalities? Okay, what do you mean by that? Okay. So the brother said, multiple personalities. You act multiple personalities. You act one way out in public and another way privately, right? So there's a public and a private performance that's going on. Yes, right here in the middle, right here. Okay? You don't have the ability to connect. All right, I'm gonna take questions. I'm gonna take questions in a few minutes, all right? All right. You don't have the ability to connect. I see your hand right here with the glasses, yes. You may have anger issues. And who may you take some of those anger issues out on? Violence against women. Right? All right? This young brother right here said suicide, homicide. All right? Suicide, homicide, yes. Depression. There's so many men who suffer from depression silently. In fact, I have a fraternity brother who lives 2 doors down from me. His son recently committed suicide, tragically. Young man, he was actually a college student at Hampton University. Committed suicide, have been dealing with and struggling with depression for many years. His family members did not even know the depth of his pain because he internalized it. Because so many boys and men are socialized in conditions to hide our feelings, to keep our feelings and emotions to ourselves, he hid it. And he eventually committed suicide, which was a tragedy to everybody in our community, to our fraternity brothers. So we have to break this idea that showing your feelings somehow makes you less than a man, that bottling up your emotions is manly. It's not, yes. Okay? Internal conflict. Okay? Leading to identity crisis. Okay? I appreciate that. I appreciate all of this. And now, because we are running out of time, and I could take much more time identifying some more consequences, I want to talk about what healthy masculinity looks like. Okay? What is it? What does it mean to be a healthy man? I'm not talking about physically healthy. I'm not talking about going to the gym and working out and lifting weights, right, and doing cardio. I'm talking about what does it mean to be holistically healthy. I see you, brother, yes. Express, oops. Sorry about that. Express your emotions. I'm writing quickly because I know we're running out of time. Express your emotions. Yes, sir, right here. Being empathetic. Empathy is really important. Let me tell you why empathy is really important. We witnessed a national crisis, right, at the highest levels of our government with the Supreme Court hearings of Brett Kavanaugh, right? We saw a woman who came forward to tell her story about being sexually assaulted. Her story, and I say her, Dr. Ford's story is not unlike many girls and women's story all over the country, regardless of race. There are a lot of women in our communities that have suffered from rape and sexual assault. And one of the big problems that they face is not receiving enough empathy from people who look like us, men. What oftentimes happens is that we become defensive, like Brett Kavanaugh, like Donald Trump, like other men who are accused of rape and sexual assault. We question their behavior, we question their motives, we question their stories, we call them liars. We do all sorts of things to dehumanize them, right? And to diminish their experiences with a man who may have sexually violated them. And so it's really important for us as men to be able to develop this particular skill set, having empathy and compassion toward other people in our world, including the women in our lives. Anyone else have any other traits that lead to healthy masculinity? I'll take you, and you all the way up to the top, and then we're gonna close out, yes. Comfortable in your skin. Okay. Is that, I don't want to mischaracterize what you're saying, but just being comfortable in your skin. Okay. What else? All right. So, healthy growth. Okay, thank you very much. There was somebody up here. Yes, all the way up top. Next and last so I can hear you. Nurturing. Okay, self-growth. Okay, I like this one. Being self-reflective. Confidence, real confidence, true confidence. Okay? I like this word too. Authentic. Or authenticity. Look, fellas, we're running out of time. We could do this for another half an hour. But here's the general point, and this is how I would like to close. Everyone in this room, I'm making an assumption, are good men. The fact that you are at a college like Morehouse College means that by definition, you are leaders in the African American community and potential leaders out in the world. Every single man in this room has the opportunity and the ability to change the culture of toxic masculinity by raising your voice, by questioning it, by challenging some of these social norms that don't necessarily fit, just like this brother right here challenged me, right? He raised his hand, he said, nah, that's not really how we do things at Morehouse. We're trying to get to another place. We see ourselves as intellectuals. And I appreciate you so much for saying that. It was an intelligent thing to say. It means that he's a critical thinker. And I'm assuming that everyone in this room is being groomed to become critical thinkers. So I want you to challenge everything that we talked about inside this box. I challenge you to grow personally and to evolve right here and right now. One of the things I really regret with my own dad, and one of the things I really longed for with my own father, was a sense of vulnerability. I wanted my father to be more vulnerable with me. Can anybody relate to that? I've been in your life where you want them to be more vulnerable with you? Like I wanted him to be able to say, I'm sorry, whenever he made a mistake. To share some of his regrets in life. To tell me more about what he felt, not necessarily what he thought. And it wasn't until he became an older man that he began to do that. And what I'm saying to you is you don't have to wait until you're an older man to make these type of changes. You don't have to wait until you're 50 and 60 years old in order to show vulnerability, in order to be open, in order to show compassion, in order to be comfortable in your own skin, in order to have confidence in yourself, or to do some really healthy self-reflection. You can start doing that right now. If you're not doing it right now, you can start today. And so I'm challenging each and every single person in this room, from the front row all the way to the back row, all the way to the back row, is that you walk out of this room right now feeling differently about who you are as a man. To be strong, to reject these ideas about these words that are outside of the box. Eliminate the power of those words. If somebody calls you a pussy, then you look at them like, what? That's not an insult. If somebody calls you soft or sensitive or a faggot or any of those words, I want you to develop the steel, right? The emotional courage to be able to reject that so that you can become closer to who you really are as men on this Morehouse campus. We're out of time. We have to go. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you. Thank you for staying here, for using your mind and your intelligence. Thank you very much.